Some of you may remember or know Damien and Rita Gabis. And back in '95, I was started working on their property just to help them with their landscape. They kept buying a little more land, and we sat down and talked about what to do, and we decided to start an arboretum. And so we went from there, going to different conferences, and as the time went on, we just built more and more things, learned more. My background is in agriculture and horticulture, so it was a natural fit. And then later on, this was a natural wet area. Right in here was really wet, and we decided to build this pavilion, the Joseph E. Meyer Memorial Pavilion. So we put a small dam down there to dam up the stream and take use of the natural water that was here, built this pavilion. My brother Richard, who is a landscape architect, designed virtually every garden here. This building he designed, the restrooms and all the gardens and everything. And then we built most of them ourselves in-house, all the gardens. And so this was going on. The black oak you see right there, Sarah mentioned about saving it. It was during construction. Because I wanted to protect the root zone of that tree, I roped it all off with caution tape because it was an incredibly valuable feature for this whole landscape here. We really designed a lot of this around that tree. Next to it, right over there, you can see the yellow tree coming up. It's Fraxinus quadrangulata. It's the blue oak, it's blue ash family. And so far, it seems to have avoided emerald ash borer. And we're not sure if blue ash is the one ash that is not susceptible to emerald ash borer. So that's pretty cool. But yes, this used to be the place where all the concerts were held and things like that before the other area was built for concerts. Right over here, anybody know what these trees are?
Aspen?
Aspen, which one? Big tooth.
Big tooth?
Big tooth aspen. Or, yeah, Populus grandidentata, big tooth. And if you look at it, you can see the nice big teeth on the leaves. The nice thing about this particular tree, these were here obviously ahead of time. That's another reason why this is between those trees and this grove. This is what's called a poplar grove. These are all clonal together. So they all came up off a clone, a single clone. That's typically how they grow. And so we've been enjoying having those all these years. I'm glad they're still here.
And those were here, right? You didn't
Those were here, yeah. So again, these trees were here. That big oak was here. Those are the two main trees that were here, and we wanted to save those, and we built everything going around those two, and that's why the location of all these trees.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So did you plant like the pawpaw?
Yes, the pawpaws, most everything on that side over there that's small, the pawpaws, the carpinus, everything else was all planted by us. Cool. The large oaks are all naturally here.
Okay.
And when we get out to Oak Island, I'll tell you a little more about that.
All right.
Are there any seed banks for ash trees? Anybody saving seeds?
I'm assuming, I haven't checked it, but I'm assuming the people I've been saving seed banks for ash, as well as looking on finding particular ash trees that appear to have survived and may have some natural resistance, and in those cases they'll save those seeds and try to plant those out and replant with enough resistant trees. I mean, that's one of the things they look for with elms for years for Dutch elm disease and things like that. So there's people always looking at that.
Cool. Shall we head to Oak Island? This used to be a pasture, or what was this originally, Jim?
Well, I have air photos, or they should be in the files, the aerial photos from the 1930s and 1950s. And this particular area was pasture. If you look at it, with scattered oaks, which some of the real large ones that were here were smaller trees that was primarily grazed by cattle. And then they were taken off sometime in the late 1950s, as far as we can tell. And it's grown up since that time. But this was heavily grazed until either late 1950s or early 1960s, somewhere in there.
So I always wondered, because we don't find a lot of ephemerals in natural woodland plants.
Yeah, it's going to take a long time for those to all come back, because it was grazed heavily for years.
Yeah. What's this one?
Imbricaria.
Yeah, shingle
Mhm,
oak.
yep.
Yep. Okay.
But it's a big, beautiful tree.
It's a beautiful one.
Yep.
This is one of my favorite trees. Common name is overcup oak, and it's my favorite tree because the cap totally encapsulates the acorn. Instead of having a little hat, it's totally covered.
These are one of the first trees I planted here. I bought them from the State Nursery of Valonia, which is in southern Indiana. And I was wanting to create along this edge a southern riverine system type thing. This is before we even started the Arboretum. I was playing around, having fun with the family. So I got these little oak trees this big, planted them along here. Didn't know if they would survive because in Indiana they only come up just a little ways north of the Ohio River naturally. And as you can see, 25 years or more later, you can see what we have here. They've done very, very well. So I kind of like them in the fact they're my first babies out here, and they've done real well. In later years, this whole area was all forested, and with a small open field, we cleared out everything but the oaks and a few other trees, but most everything got cleared out to create oak islands. And oak islands is designed to have various oaks from different parts of the U.S. or North America and the world in islands where they would grow perhaps together or in similar areas. This one is the low area, which it's wet down here, so these are all oaks that will tolerate wetter feet. The overcup oak and the swamp white that's here. There's some other oaks we planted here, didn't survive. That's part of what the deal is. I tried a lot of oaks, a lot of things that were out of the zone. You never know. This one made it, some others don't. There used to be a nice willow oak right out here. It finally succumbed. There is.
Yeah, I had to pull that out.
Yeah, no, it's again, it's great in North Carolina and Tennessee and Kentucky and southern Indiana, but it is not, doesn't make it here. However, there are some at Brinka Cross. If you've been up to Brinka Cross Gardens, there are some willow oaks there because of the lake effect, winter protection, they're surviving there. But that's the only place I know of one in northern Indiana. So anyway, that's where we'll start here. This is Oak Islands, and we'll go all the way through, and I'll stop at a few different places. But this is the lowland oaks. One other thing, when we first did this, we planted out black gums, sweet gums, hickories, the pecan hickory, which is they're all southern trees, and they've all survived.
Yeah, and some of them we noticed are reproducing.
Right, yeah, they are reproducing on their own, so that's pretty cool. There is one tree right there that we'll go past. That's Hills Oak, Quercus ellipsoidalis, common all over this property. However, it's very uncommon in most of Indiana. This past year, the Arboretum here became home to the largest known Quercus ellipsoidalis in Indiana. But I've been watching it for years and finally let the state come look at it in the forestry, and they said, we verified it, and it's now in the Big Tree Registry as the largest Quercus ellipsoidalis in Indiana.
It's up off of Goldfinch Trail, and we were up there and we measured it, I think about 13 feet 7 inches or
Where else is the swamp white oak? Wetland area?
Yeah, you'll find it. I'm trying to remember. I think there are some along the Cowles Bog Trail.
Okay.
But I can't remember exactly. There's so many trees up there, but I'm pretty sure there are some there. The Quercus bicolor is the Latin name for it. But yeah, they're scattered around. One thing on this oak, if you look at this leaf, you can see the shape. It's a white oak, similar to our Quercus alba, but in the summer, and you can even feel it now on the backside, it's nice soft hairs all the way on. So that's one of the telltale signs of this tree, are the nice soft hairs on the back side of that leaf. And it's really the only one of our local oaks that has that feature. So that makes it pretty interesting. There's usually at least one distinctive feature on every tree that allows us to say, oh, that's what that is. Pretty assuredly. Okay, we'll move on. The tree we're standing under, what's special about this tree?
State tree of Indiana.
Yep, state tree of Indiana.
We made a lot
Yeah,
of
that's
covered bridges with tulip poplar.
Yeah, but yeah, this is the tulip poplar. We planted it here. This area happens to be what would be called Eastern North America, more upland type trees as we go this way, and they're typical trees that you'd find there. Not only oaks did we plant, but we also planted some other trees in here that are associated with oaks that you might find in a similar setting. And so that's why we planted that tulip poplar. He was just, I don't know how big he was. He was a little squirt when I stuck him in the ground here.
Does
Yes.
it have a tulip-shaped flower
Yes.
on it?
Yeah, the flowers are like, they sit upright, like it looks just like a tulip in the spring. They're really beautiful. I have only one negative about this tree, and that's in August, sap. Don't park a car under
Oh,
this in
really?
August, because it will be covered with sap. But other than that, it's a great tree. It's surprisingly fast growing, but doesn't drop limbs like silver maples and stuff, so it's a nice tree.
Down in southern Indiana, there's some monsters.
Oh, yeah.
Clifty Falls. I can't believe there's one where you're actually on the edge of the canyon, and its roots are down at the bottom of the canyon, and the top is still over the people. I mean, this thing is, it's a 200 feet.
Yeah, they're massive
Oh,
trees in the south. Southern Indiana obviously grows trees much larger than here because of the longer growing season and everything else. With the trees that are, hardy down there compared to here. But like Quercus ellipsoidalis doesn't even grow much farther south than here in the state of Indiana. It's pretty much northwest Indiana through Wisconsin into a little bit of Minnesota and Iowa. And that's it. It's a small range for ellipsoidalis. Some call it the jack oak, some call it northern pin oak. So there's different things for it. So they did have different ranges, but some of the basic trees that grow a wide range, like bur oak and things like that, they'll be much larger in southern Indiana than here. They're just massive out there, especially when you get close to the Ohio River.
Yeah, they get what, about 150 feet tall?
And their spread is incredible too. Just for pure looks in an open field and color and everything, probably the prettiest oak still is the Quercus alba, or white oak. Massive spreading tree, beautiful. When you go out, you'll see it. It'll have the burgundies and reds and all different colors in the falls. When I was in high school, I was in New Jersey, and there was this one oak down in the courtyard of the Presbyterian Church, and that tree had been a huge tree when Washington's troops camped under it during the American Revolution. And it finally died about 5 years ago, and they had to cut it down. But it was massive. Just the spread on that was incredible, and everything else. So, yeah, and white oak was voted the national tree of the U.S. So, for whatever tidbit that's worth.
Yeah.
Question is, what was it like planning this particular area? And we designed it with the idea being, like I said, islands based on habitat as much as we could create. And yeah, we just sat down, and my brother and I and some of our staff, and we started working on what we wanted in here, and went about collecting them. A lot of them we'd already started in the greenhouse and acorns that I'd collected different places, and or some of them were already here. Obviously, some of the trees that were here, we just left them there, and so
And where did you collect them from?
we collect them through the Oak Society, a lot of them. And then one year in the mid-2000s, Damien Gabis and I took about a 4-day road trip to southern Indiana. Met with one of the forestry guys there, and we went around for 3 days, literally going to set trees, photographing them, taking GPS readings and stuff. I could still find them on Google Maps. I could go out and find those trees on Google Maps when I had the coordinates and punched in. And we started collecting acorns, and we collected herbarium samples to bring back, and those you'll find in the cabinet, should still be there. And then we planted them out and started raising them up and moved them out here. Some have made it, some have not, because they were, again, all from southern Indiana, but that's the fun of it. I know at one point in the nursery, Damien came out one day in August, we were walking through there, and he was looking kind of disappointed in some of our trees because they weren't doing well. And I said, Damien, remember, we're zone 5, these are zone 7. We are stretching the limit here. That's what we do, but not everything is going to survive. He says, oh, you're right. It's like we're not a nursery that's growing stuff for this area only. We are here in Arboretum. And one of our early board members was a Purdue professor who said one of the beauties of the Arboretums is long-term study of trees and what we can do here, trying things that a commercial nursery could never afford to do. So, okay. Well, this particular tree has a lot of features of a black oak, but the buds are not particularly completely black oak buds. They're more of an intermediate between Hills oak or ellipsoidalis and the velutina or the black oak. And it's not uncommon for oaks to hybridize. They do it all the time. I always call them very promiscuous because their pollen will blow. They're basically pollinated by wind, and it blows everywhere. And black oak group, black red oak group will only pollinate with other members of the black red oak group, and then the white oak group will only pollinate with their group. But you get all kinds of interesting combinations. And this one, I'm looking there, the leaves are telling me it's black oak. Walking by, the petioles on the leaf are kind of yellow, you can see that. And there's some yellow inside the bark, that's where the velutina comes from, name. But when I look at the buds, normally black oak buds are about this long and they're big white hairy buds. These are not, they're just a little shorter, not real hairy yet. But they're not as short as ellipsoidalis, so could be somewhere in between. And that's not unusual. There are unnamed hybrids all over the place out here. Years ago, Dick Jensen from St. Mary's College over by Notre Dame, he's the world's foremost authority on the red oak group, which only grows in the Western Hemisphere. He was out here looking at a lot of our trees with me and helped me identify them, and he just said, unknown hybrid, unknown hybrid. And he said they're all over the place. A lot of them they just call Quercus ex paleolithicola. But it's
I've tried to identify oaks. And the only ones I can really identify is when they're extremes, because when they're in between, like these hybrids, I'm like, okay, I'm not sure.
You'll get with a group from the Oak Society, which I've been, a member for a long time. Gosh, I can't keep track anymore. 20 years. I was on the board of directors for years as well. One of the things that we get together, and we're looking at trees like this, and we'll have all these opinions about, and these people are, the most knowledgeable in the world about oaks, and we'll still sit there and have fun with friendly arguments over what they really are, who the parents are, and how much of the parentage is there. It used to be that Hills oak or ellipsoidalis was thought to be like a northern pin oak or similar to scarlet oak. But Dr. Andrew Hipp from Morton Arboretum years ago came out here because we had so many of the ellipsoidalis here that were blended in with other things, and we did DNA studies. And I collected a lot of things, we worked together on it, but he did most of the work. I really just was a fun participant for the ride. Came up with that actually, from a DNA standpoint, Hills oak is very closely related to black oak, not the other ones. So that's why it's not surprising that but if you notice, we mentioned earlier about a shingle oak. I think there's one up here. So yeah, let's look at shingle oak. When we get there, I'll tell you a little bit about that one as well. This is Quercus montana or Quercus prinus. They get different synonyms, much like various things like to change the names all the time and what you call stuff. Taxonomists love to change the names of plants and diseases and insects and everything else. And so this one's been changed over the years. It's a white oak group, you can see, because it's all smooth ends, no bristle tips. It's a common tree in most of Indiana. It's not, I don't see it growing in Porter County at all, or Lake County along Lake Michigan. I don't see it anywhere naturally here, but it's perfectly hardy. And so it's a nice, really nice looking tree. I've got some at my house as well. It's
Has a really
tree.
different leaf.
Yeah, it's got a quite a different leaf, and it's kind of unique like that.
Does it have a common name?
I don't know. It
It's
probably
just Quercus
does.
montana.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't know. I've never looked that up to see what the common name is. Part of the problem of being in like the Oak Society or something, because we're truly international, we don't ever use common names. We use
All
only
Latin.
Latin binomial names, because Quercus alba, a person in France or Japan or China or wherever you say Quercus alba, and they know what we mean. If I say white oak, maybe not.
And they may have a different name,
Or
common
they
name.
may have a different common name as well for it. But with botanic names, they're universal to there's only one botanic name for for any one of these trees. Well, if they've been changing, then they'll say Quercus montana, synonym, whatever, if they've had to, sometimes also known as, which in a while, but they're really specific, which is why at times I don't know common names.
Well, this is very interesting because several of us here will lead Wednesday afternoon golf cart tours, and sometimes we do come out here, and this is really helpful to get this knowledge of what some of these things are. This is wonderful.
Quercus imbricaria, shingle oak. If you notice, there are no lobes on it whatsoever. The leaves are entirely smooth. There's a tiny bristle tip on the end, so that puts it in the black red oak group. The imbricaria means overlapping. This particular tree, the settlers used it to make shingles out of. That's why it's called shingle oak, because the wood split so perfectly nice when they cut shingles with it. They could use it to make shingles on houses. A lot of work. It's a lot easier to go down and buy a bundle up at Home Depot or something. But the unique thing on this tree is, again, if you're in other parts of the world where oak leaves come in all different shapes, you don't think anything of it. Around here, when I tell people this is an oak, they look at me and say, no, it doesn't have an oak leaf. Well, they're only used to white oak and red oak type leaves with big lobes, and that's the extent of it. One of our premier plantsmen in this area, George Brenn, some of you may know him, he was out with a client one day. It was a physician who wanted George to do work on his property, because George has Four Seasons nursery, and so George was going out and identifying trees for him and stuff like that, and they come across a shingle oak, and this doctor asks, what's this? And George says, it's a shingle oak. And the doctor says, what, that's not an oak? And George says, yes, that's a shingle oak. And the doctor said, you have no idea what you're talking about. This is over, this conversation's over, and walked away. He said, I was fired on the spot because the guy did not know.
Really?
Yep, he was fired on the spot before he even got started, because the guy assumed he didn't know, that George didn't know what he was talking about, because he called this an oak. So the doctor's not always right. especially when he steps outside of his realm of expertise. So it's always that interesting story. It reminds me when I see this tree of be careful when you say things that you're really not sure about, because you just never know what'll happen.
So this is in the black oak group.
Yes,
And
and
you said there's like a bristle tip or something.
if you look on the very end of the leaf, and here's when it shows it pretty good. You can see a tiny bristle tip there.
Wow, that's crazy. It's not like the most prominent thing on
No, it's not very prominent. And what's interesting, there are white oaks that have spines on their leaves, but they're not those bristle tips. Those are not in the U.S. They're over in Europe instead. Quercus cuspifera and stuff. They look like miniature shrubby hollies. I mean, you walk into them, they just cut you all up. But we don't have any of those here. So, but now this tree and so the shingle oak and black oak, when they hybridize, they'll form a tree called Quercus exiliana. I don't know if it's still there or not, but there are some around what's now on the private property. They were huge. And what you get is, you get black oak leaves that are distorted and twisted in all shapes. Some get skinny, some get fat. I mean, they look like something out of the Twilight Zone. And when I first saw them, I had to figure out what they were, and then like, oh, this is Quercus exiliana, this weird, really weird thing. It was really cool looking, but again, it looked like something out of the Twilight Zone. As I mentioned earlier, this was all forested, and most of this was cottonwoods and black cherry. as the main trees that were in here, with these few oaks scattered amongst them. Because it was very dense, the oaks only had their leaves and branches up top. Everything, they were just straight trees growing up, typical forest trees on top. We cleared everything out around it. Back, well, it's been probably close to 20 years ago when we cleared this out. The only thing on here was a tuft of green up top. And all these branches came out afterwards. I never dreamed there were that many latent buds, adventitious buds, sitting under that bark, just waiting for light to hit it. I never dreamed it would come back like as good as it did like that. We just had never done that. So it was really, really fun. It's been fun to see how they've come back. And they did it quite quickly.
Yeah.
It didn't take but a few years, and pretty soon there's little branches all over. At first it looked like when you you get a real short haircut, and then all of a sudden everything just starts fuzzing out all over. That's just what it did. It was really cool to watch. And then they started segregating out and going back to a normal tree.
Yeah,
You want to sing?
What's this one with the real small leaves?
I'm trying to remember what we planted. This looks like, I believe this is like Quercus falcata,
What's that, Quercus?
southern red oak
Oh,
we have up
that's
here.
the southern red oak.
I
Yeah.
think that's what this one is, or it's kind of similar to it. And I'm not, I'd have to look up exactly, start keying it out again. We planted them here. There's a lot of things about it that look,
Okay.
and so I know we planted a southern red oak up here. The path used to really goes this way, and so this is the southern red oak, and this one here. I think this is the only Quercus marilandica that we got to survive. I believe that's what this is. I'll have to key it a little further, but the leaves look like it. This is one we collected on the trip on a bluff over the Ohio River. So I'm pretty sure that's what this one is. And basically, we call this our holy grail of oaks to find because there's hardly any in the state, just in a few unique spots. And I won't say exactly for sure, but that's pretty much what this looks like when I got home and I was looking again at it. Quercus marilandica. Yeah, I think it's blackjack oak or something, but it grows on bluffs and cliffs along the Ohio River. We had to crawl into some funny spots to get acorns.
Did you? That's fun.
How old is
Yeah, and I love those.
This particular one, this is probably 18 years old.
Wow.
So you can see this is not a real happy zone for it.
It is not.
But I'm surprised it's still alive. But yeah, it's shrubby, and that's typical what I would expect from a tree well out of its range like that. This one.
And we have had years here
Then it goes back to the ground.
that it was, yeah, like the 6 sign is still even here, but it looked like it wasn't going to make it. But the last few, it's
Yeah, the last 2 winters have been mild, so it's coming back. So it's kind of unique to see that. I don't think we'll ever see acorns on it. I say a lot of these trees, if you've been in the mountains hiking and you get up by the timber line, you see hardy trees, but they're 100 years old and they're this tall. That's a lot of what happens with a lot of these. They survive vegetatively, but they don't thrive.
I love the veining on this.
Yeah, it's a really cool.
Yeah.
So in a nice warm environment, they do grow much larger.
Oh yeah, southern Indiana and
Yeah.
Kentucky, Tennessee, and throughout the South. Yeah, that's their native range. You won't find them here naturally. I think probably the only one in northern Indiana. That's not surprising. That's true for a lot of things here. The only ones in northern Indiana are here because I put them here.
Pretty cool.
Some things that we brought in here: Quercus gambellii, the gamble oak, and things like that. Quercus garryana, the white oak of Oregon, and different oaks from California. As you can see, they love California. They don't like it.
They don't like it here. But we're
there's
trying.
you know, there's softies in California, I guess. I have friends that live there, and I've been there a lot. My son was stationed there, so I love California for all the various vegetations and all the different areas in the mountains and along the coast and inland areas up high. Just so much variety of stuff there.
Yeah.
Really cool.
And the trees. As you tell, there were lots of acorns here just 2 weeks ago, and now I'm having a hard time finding one.
Between the squirrels and the deers
Yeah.
and the blue jays and everything else.
Blue jays will take them?
Oh, blue jays love acorns. They're one of the biggest spreaders of acorns around, are blue jays.
Cool.
My backyard, I've got little shingle oaks coming up all over.
Uh-huh.
There are no shingle oaks in my yard all around, but about a quarter mile north is a big shingle oak. Well, the wind wouldn't blow those acorns anywhere, but the blue jays carry them and plant them all over the place. So one of the biggest ways to get rapid distance for oak trees is to have blue jays carry them.
That's a really neat fact. And if you sit out here in the fall, you can see them
Just picking them up. This area here is our Northern Europe area, and this is Quercus cerus. You can see these trees like it here. There's a few of them here, and they're doing really, really well.
pretty leaves.
Yeah.
Some people, is this an English oak at all?
No.
Yeah.
No, it's
Which we'll see which. You don't call it an English oak when you're in England.
no.
You
In
call
England, you can call it the English
Right.
oak or
a common oak.
but in France, you do not call it the English oak.
Okay.
Ooh, I bet not. So it was Quercus
Cerus, C-E-R-R-I-S.
C-E-R-R-I-S. Okay.
Yeah. And so it's obviously it's one that likes this particular area, it likes our soil here. These are all clay soils and rain, most of you know that. And so this one was, again, I started this from an acorn. And
Right?
so it's doing well. I really like that one. So it's one of the ones that have done well here. This is a really cool looking oak, Quercus macranthera. Big leaves, big fat leaves. This tree is still surviving, which is amazing considering I didn't think it was going to live because it's really out of its zone. But it's got a really cool leaf. As you come up close, you look on the ends, these real fuzzy end bud areas and flowers where they were. It's just a really unusual oak to see. You need to come back here and see this thing in the spring and summer and look at this one because it's just fun to watch. I hate to sacrifice a plant, but we may have to sacrifice some of this to keep this guy going.
I think we'll do a nice pruning here in
A
about a couple weeks.
big pruning. But yeah. So this is again one of them that's out of its zone. It's surviving, but it's not thriving. But it's okay. That's the fun of an arboretum.
Yeah. You know,
Looks
we're-
like a cousin of the bur oak with the way the
Mhm,
bark
yeah.
and everything looks.
Well, it is a white oak, so yeah. In fact, all the oaks in Europe are white oaks. There are no red oaks. Red oaks are only in North America. Now there are red oaks in Europe now because we've taken people from Europe have taken them back
we sent
there.
them invasives back, huh?
Well, most of them aren't invasive.
Oh,
Yeah, they're
I was
not
making it.
invasive there, but I mean, I know of the acorns from this spot here, especially ellipsoidalis, because we became the main source for ellipsoidalis that are now in collections around the world. Came all from this site here. So, yes, so there's some growing at a big manor at the Lord Kenyon estate in Wales. He's got them all growing all over from
Really?
here.
From here.
Yeah, because he's been here before. He and his wife Sally. Well, he's deceased now, but yeah. So
So these are still European.
yes,
oaks, and this one is. What?
yes. I think I'm not sure. I think that's Dalachampy, but I can't remember for sure. They all look similar.
Very pretty the leaves.
Yeah.
On this.
So what zone is this one supposed to be?
I think Zone 7.
Zone 7?
If you like oaks, join the International Oak Society. It's not expensive. It's a great group. You just go online, find the International Oak Society. And it's a great group of people everywhere from students who are interested in things all the way up to members of the House of Lords in England and every place in between. It's just a really eclectic group and everybody has a great time.
So when they came out here, did you give them a tour?
I didn't. Well, I did some of it, and then Craig led them through here to help to do the identification for a lot of the things. And he's got his notes.
And he was part of that group.
Yeah, Craig was here, but yeah, they did.
Yep.
So that was 2015. The International Oak Society had their triennial conference at Morton Arboretum, and the post-conference tour. This was the last stop on that post-conference tour. Was out here.
I remember that. We had to get the lawn just perfect.
So it was a wonderful time. And it's a wonderful organization.
Is there a local chapter or?
No, there's no local chapter. 2025, we will be in southern Mexico for the next conference. Mexico has more oaks than any other country in the world. The most variety of oak, the greatest number of oak species in the world by far, including, I don't even have one with me. I should have brought one of my Quercus insignis acorns are almost the size of a tennis ball.
You don't want to be under the tree
You don't
when
want
that
to be
wind
under
blows.
a tree when those are falling. So, they're massive trees in Mexico.
Did those oak trees just grow there, or were they imported?
Where, in Mexico?
Mexico.
Oh no, they're all native. No, there's over 100 different species native to Mexico. It's just amazing. Oak Wonderland. Right here we have, and it's hard with the leaves are off right now, but you've got two of the oaks that are most predominant in northern Europe, Quercus petrea and Quercus robur. Quercus robur is known as also the English oak or the common oak, and Quercus petrea is also a very common oak. It's sometimes called the French white oak. Well, the English don't call it that. So, in oak identification, I mentioned the two groups, red oaks and white oaks, and I think I mentioned earlier about the bristle tips on the red oak, black oak group, and no bristle tips on the white oak group here. That's one way you can tell right off which group they belong in. But then the main thing that most people, that taxonomists look at, are, in the case of oaks, are the winter end buds and the acorns with the acorn caps, because those are very distinct. Even if they're a hybrid, there's a distortion. And that's how I was working out confirming the Quercus ellipsoidalis, was I had to find acorns under the tree that the squirrels hadn't got, and some end buds, and the tree's too high to get to any branches, so I had to find them down below, and enough of them that right around the base where nothing else would contaminate it, and then say, yes, that's what we have. But looking at those things, so those are the main two things I use. That's why winter tree ID, when you can find acorns and buds, is really very definitive for most of them.
I think it's very interesting how different the buds are. I mean, that's something I didn't realize until a few years ago.
Yeah. Some of them are tiny little things you can barely see, and other ones are huge, like the Leucanthera back there, or some of the other ones. And if you see one that's long and pointed, real hairy white, that's a black oak. So if you're walking around in the winter and you see a tree with a big white end buds on it, dormant, you know it's a black oak. You don't need leaves, just that's what it is. It's the only one here that looks like that. Yes?
What is this?
That is hazelnut. Only it's the European version, and that's tortula, tortured version of it. It's all twisted and gnarly like that and grows. I have one of those in my backyard too. My wife wants it moved. She says it's too big for where it is. So I have to move it. It was a rescue plant from someplace else. It's a fun, interesting plant.
On our tours, we either call it the Hogwarts tree or the Harry Potter tree.
Yeah, it's got that. Can have that look to it. Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
I always thought like the red oaks had more pointed.
Well, they have
And
a pointed bristle tip. Yeah.
I would pick that for like a pin oak.
There are really no pin oaks here because the soil's wrong. Pin oaks need well-drained, damp soils. It sounds weird, but they like bottomlands that are well-drained, but they get plenty of water, and they have to be acid. They will not tolerate alkaline soils, and pH is too high here. I mean, they'll grow here. You'll see people will plant pin oaks in the town, the city. They'll plant them, red oaks in certain areas, and they always look chlorotic. You know, you see them all, some are pale and leaves veiny and stuff. They're chlorotic because they're on high pH soil, and they hate that. And I tell people all the time, don't plant those, and they do anyway. And then what's wrong with my tree? Well, you can't fix it because you can't fix that soil. You planted the wrong tree. So this is the quote-unquote English oak, or Quercus robur, also called the pedunculate oak, mainly because it's got a long, huge long petioles, and very common, does very, very well here. Hybridizes well with our North American white oaks. You can find a lot of hybrids with Quercus alba and Quercus robur. There's all different kinds. I've got some at home. They're fun to grow, and so it's just a great tree. It's not invasive, and if it was, it'd be okay. As far as it's really not, and it's the one thing is they just don't take off and like other trees that do, like multiflora rose and stuff like that, which is a big problem. So it's a great tree. These trees there, some of them are just, the old ones are magnificent, 500-600 years old, more than that. One other thing you've all seen yews in your, the yews around the house. People shear them off, the old foundation plantings, things like that. Yews don't like that. They tolerate it, but that's not good for, that's not what they were really grown for. When I was in Winchester in 2003, you all remember the song Winchester Cathedral? Well, I was at Winchester Cathedral, and in there, outside the church building, in this common area, was this massive yew. This thing was incredibly huge. It was probably 40 feet, 50 feet high, and probably 80 feet wide. It was there before the church was built in like 1100 or something. This thing was just absolutely marvelous to look at. I had my camera out, wide angle lens, and still had to take 3 photos to get it all in and piece them together. It was that big. It was just phenomenal. So now I can never look at a yew someone's pruned in their yard and just think, oh, if only we would let that thing grow. But
Guess I have a few in the real weed garden.
yeah, but and in fairness, if you're by the house, you can't let it grow. So they are beautiful still there, but to see one in its magnificent growing size at over 600 years old was just incredible, just wonderful. Quercus mongolica. Obviously, it comes from Asia, and it's doing pretty well here, though not as well as the Actitismus, but it's a fun tree to plant and have one in our Asian group. This is actually the Middle East, in the Caucasus range and things like that, into Asia group. That's what this area is. There's Quercus haas here. That's a type of Quercus robur cultivar that's in here. So most of them didn't survive, but you think about the Middle East, it's a little warmer than here. And so not most of them didn't make it, but every once in a while we get a few that surprise us. If you look over here, everybody know what those trees are, that nice russet color? Bald cypress. I planted those as well, because they're obviously not natural here, but as you can feel how soggy this ground is, and there's the stream that carries all the water away that's there, so I figured, well, I'll plant bald cypress there, see what they do. They were this big when I put them in, put little cages around them to keep the deer off them, and here they are. So they're happy there, and it's fun to watch them every year. They're beautiful in the spring when they first leaf out, and just that real wonderful spring green color that they have. Yeah. Real quick, right here, this little grove just came up in the last, how many years, Sarah? Do you remember?
I'd say the last 5.
Yeah, within the last 5 years, because it wasn't planted here. It's quaking aspens. So here we are out in Colorado along one of the rivers, or Nebraska, I guess. Yeah, but these are quaking aspens, and they'll come up clonally, and so somehow one of them got started, and they're all happy here. And, I don't see that very often around here. It's kind of cool.
They're really going to spread, aren't they?
Yeah, they'll spread quite a bit.
Yeah.
We can burn them off and keep them back.
Yep.
I shouldn't say we. I'm not here anymore working. I'm just here tonight. Anybody else? You had a question?
I had a question. As I walked on the owl trail towards the children's playground, there are 2 big, large, snarled oak trees, and there's one on each side. And I just wondered if there was any significance to those 2 trees.
The 2 bur oaks.
Bur oaks.
I'm trying to remember exactly which ones they were.
Is there an owl this way?
Yeah, we just passed them.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Yeah.
I don't know their official name, but I call them the friendship oaks because if you look at them, they're trying to reach over the trail and they look like they're holding hands. I think they like each other.
Yeah.
But,
The biggest oaks on the property are bur oaks.
and those particular trees she's talking about, didn't you find them were they covered with?
Yeah, when that's must be the one that I years ago found totally being covered by Oriental bittersweet.
Right.
Couldn't even killing the tree, and the vines were this thick around at the base.
Did you see how thick they were? Jonathan takes out a lot of our.
Yeah, and so with the chainsaw,
And Ed.
Cut that off.
cut them off, and then all of a sudden the bur oak came back. Could get light again.
Never seen one that big.
So this area here, is just kind of knoll, like always kind of a fun spot to hang out. And it's changed over the years a little bit. We used to go under this particular bur oak there, but we've let that grow up because it's declining. A lot of the bur oaks here are aged out and are declining real bad. Just over time, that's not unusual. 200-300 years is about what you get out of them around here.
That council oak, that big monster that's on
Mhm.
the property, we've debated whether that's one tree or a couple of them kind of grown together. Is that a single tree?
I don't know, but my guess is when it was young, something happened to damage the tree, and so it started growing back sucker shoots, which they typically will do many times. And after that, it somehow survived and grew up all those little sucker shoots together, and just had enough time to continue to grow over hundreds of years and become this massive tree. And that's probably what it was. Don't know that for certain, but that's not unusual for that to happen that way.
So that council oak, as we call it, tree, was here when you started, right?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that was here before Indiana was a state.
Okay.
Most likely that was here before Indiana was a state, or close to it. Yeah, because it was. I think those kind of trees show up on the old 1837 registries. So, surveyors
We
came.
put a
through.
tape measure to that one, and it's like over between 22 and 23 feet around and about
Right.
chest high.
The reason it was given the name by our staff, the council oak, is because the size of a tree and its shape uniqueness was that before there were street signs out here, that was one of the Native Americans. They would have used that tree as a place they would gather to meet with other people or whatever. And so maybe have a council, maybe who knows, whatever, but it would have been a typical marker type tree. It would have been so unique that we'll meet you at that particular tree and everyone would know what, in the area would know what you're talking about. Because there's nothing else like it here. And so we just named it the council oak because place to hang out and have councils. Whether anybody ever did or not, I don't know. A lot of fun stories you can make up. And,
It's also considered the photo op tree.
it is a photo op tree. Years ago, there were a group of young guys, and they would come out with hammocks. We didn't know it at first, and they'd come out on a Friday night when we were at to be closed, and they'd crawl up in that tree in the summer, and then they'd stretch their hammocks all the way out in the tree and hang out there and sleep all night. I said, gosh, it's kind of cool, but really you can't do that. But, I'm thinking, that's not so bad. It's pretty cool, but yeah, you really can't do that here. Our insurance agent would have it fit. Plus, it isn't going to do the tree any good at this point. We're really protecting that one. It's very popular. So, all around here, you can see the tall grass prairie, typical of what was in northwestern Indiana, and of course all through Illinois, Iowa, southern Wisconsin, southern Minnesota, northern Missouri, places like that, all the way out into the short grass prairies of western Nebraska and Colorado. This was all farmland, and very poor farmland at that. When we bought it, they were still growing crops out here, not very good ones. As the farmer who owned the land and sold it to us said, his land was so poor, a rabbit had to pack a lunch to cross it. And the soil was really like that. It was totally eroded. And so we decided we were going to plant prairies out here. So in 1998, we planted 30-some acres of prairie out here. And we put in 7,000 trees on 13 acres. And those trees all along the edge there, all the way around you see, and all the way out on the far trails were ones that were all this big. We planted those in the spring of 1997, and we did it in the snow. The last week of April, it was snowing on us while we were planting trees. It's not unusual here, right? But we put them out there, and then we went back with volunteers and made sure every one of those trees was standing straight, planted upright, and put a fertilizer tablet down. All 7,000.
How many people did you have to plant?
Well, the planting was done with a tractor and a planter, so there were 2 people. I drove the tractor and 2 of the staff. The staff, Mike and Melody, were in the back and putting them in, and then and that took 2 days, 2 or 3 days to do all this. And then after that, behind us, the volunteers would come and straighten them up, put a fertilizer tablet down, straighten them up. And practically, I think we had like a 98% survival rate, which is incredible.
That is incredible.
So that's the tree line that separates the peacock and woodcock prairie on the other side.
That one there does.
Okay.
That one there separates the neighbor's property.
Okay. So those trees were not there. Those were ones you planted.
Yeah, like most of them right along this edge here, and all those colors and stuff. We planted all those.
Wow. We always thought.
Yeah.
We always thought those were just here.
No, we've been all the way around that trail. You can see where the woods are, where the real big trees are, where it's tall. But you can see how short those are compared to the woodland.
Okay.
So the woods are the ones that were there, and as soon as it drops off, are all the trees that we planted. All those white pines along there, we planted them all.
Why are the white pines planted in that direction?
Well, because that was the end of our property, and we didn't know if there were going to be houses put out there. We wanted a buffer. So we didn't know what was going to happen in the future. We figured the white pines would give us a buffer. But nothing's happened there yet. There may someday. That's why we planted the white pines, because they give us a year-round visual buffer. Once we got over here, then and had that land, then we just there are no white pines planted on this side. They're all oaks and hickories and things like that.
They're making their way into the prairie, the white pines.
Yeah, well, that's why when you burn them, that takes care of that.
Yeah.
As long as you have periodic burns, that will pretty well take care of the pines and won't kill the bur oaks though.
No, yeah. And
Which is
speaking
good.
of a burn, if you guys can see the difference, if I can interject, we burned this spring on the side, and you can see it made room for a lot of the blue stem, and on this side has not been burned, and it, so it has a lot of thatch and different flowers. It's a whole different look. I just love to stand here and see the difference, and you'll see the same difference when we go down and through the prairie. The east side has not been burned, the west side has. So,
And you rotate your burns around.
yeah.
It was wonderful to see what we did in 16 years that I was here. And it's been an additional 12 years? Yeah, 12 years, 12 and a half.
Yeah, part of our tours that we do, we always sing the praises of the Gabis family that had the foresight to buy up this acreage for conservation.
The old houses.
Otherwise, it would just be 2 flats or whatever. It's a blessing.
Yeah. Thanks, Jim.
We had a good time.
It was lovely.
Thanks for listening.